we've moved on to the forming of our plywood. Now this plywood here is flexible ply, okay, and it's about 1.5 to 2 millimeters in thickness. This is the ply we're going to use, and I've had it soaking here in a bath of very hot water now for probably about 5 to 10 minutes. Now what the water is doing is softening the resins in the plywood, which is actually going to make it more pliable. As you can see, it's quite flexible there. It's going to take on the bend. Now ideally, when we're forming plywood, we would probably use a steam cabinet, so we'd be pumping the steam in, and effectively it might be in for anything up to about an hour, but about 5 minutes in this heat should allow us to produce the bend we want, because the bend is fairly shallow and doesn't require too much complexity. So the former we're using is this 2-part former or bending jig here, and is going to take upon this curve that we've got here. So we've got these 2 points here. These are alignment marks that just allow us to bring the 2 parts of the jig together, and this is something you should be looking at in the project when you're actually forming your product. Okay, so we're going to take the pieces out individually out. Just take off some of the excess water like this and just push it into the former like this. Now what I'm doing here is trying to get it to align to the former as best as possible, and making sure my edges here are flush with the sides of my former. So that's the first one in place. We're going to then take out the second one and apply this into the former as well. As you can see, it's taken on the bend quite well. When I'm pushing these 2 in, it's obvious that the outside part of the form is going to be slightly larger than the inside because of the thickness of the material, but I've got these as close as I can possibly get. Now I'm going to bring in the second part of the form. This is the male half here, and I'm just placing it in. So I'm looking at these 2 alignment marks and trying to get these close together. Just going to turn this round a second and try and push these together. As you can see, those alignment marks are coming quite close. I'm still trying to keep the form in place, and now I can apply some clamps to this to kind of get these 2 halves of the jig lined up as best I can. So I've got the 2 just quick release clamps here, and as you can see, that's not too bad. What we're looking for is making sure that we try and minimise the gap between the 2 forms. There's a slight gap here where this is slightly overlapping, so I would, if I was going to be a bit of a perfectionist, which you should be effectively, take this apart and aim for an absolutely perfect form when these 2 come together. That's what we're looking for. The alignment marks there are 2 lined up there, and there's very little gap in between the 2 layers of plywood when we actually come to form.